It's an Ask Anything mailbag, answering your questions on Dolphins Today. Recording this on a Wednesday, so if anything comes outdated, just move along to the next question, because that's what Dolphins Today is all about, answering your questions on an Ask Anything mailbag. But before we go any further, you probably know another Dolphins fan in your life, so why not share the video with them? Takes 2 seconds, doesn't cost you anything, and helps us out immensely. So can we get 10 shares on today's video? Call up your buddy. Don't even have to call him. Just say, hey, here's free Dolphins content. Our guy, Jake Riepma, brings it to you, the realest of the real, showing you what's up with the Dolphins. Check out Dolphins Today and help us grow our channel. Share today's video. First question on the Ask Anything mailbag from Christine Wilkerson. Using that hashtag Dolphins, Daniel Jeremiah, now he's of NFL.com, latest mock draft has the Dolphins selecting Laiatu Latu with the 21st overall pick. What are your thoughts? Well, Christine, if you go back to one of our mock drafts, in fact, I believe it was the first one we did, so Riepma's mock draft 1.0. We've done 2 on the channel, but I do a Pro Football Focus mock draft simulation where of the website they simulate the picks, and then it's like you're doing your own draft. So I did that with the Dolphins a couple of times, and in one of those I also drafted Laiatu Latu for the Dolphins with that 21st pick. He fell all the way to 21st, which I think was surprising. So if he is there, like Daniel Jeremiah suggests, I do think it makes a lot of sense to draft Laiatu Latu, because this is a guy who spent a lot of time in college. He's fully developed. He's the reigning Lombardi Award winner and is projected to be in that mid to first round pick. So if he's still available later in the round, then you have to think you're getting a steal. Now, I will address the injury concerns there, because some of those injury scares might, deter some teams from picking him in the first round. But if he can stay healthy, this is a guy that I believe could have an instant impact on your defense with his ability to get after the quarterback. 13 sacks in 2023. He has that edge rusher build, a lot of length to him, a long wingspan, very athletic, physical player that certainly is garnishing mid-first round conversation. So if he falls all the way to 21, I like this pick, even though I think we are all in agreement that the biggest position of need for the Dolphins is the offensive line. But if you have the best player available at 21 and it still fits a position need, like the edge rusher for the Dolphins, I think Laiatu Latu makes a lot of sense, and I would like that pick. How about you, though? Do you like the pick of Laiatu Latu in the first round? It's also a fun name, so extra. Yes, if you like this pick, or N for no. Either way, let your voice be heard down in the comments. Latu out of UCLA, reigning Lombardi Award winning player. Would he fit in a Dolphins uniform with that first round pick? Let me know. Here's Sherry May with a $5 super chat. How to get Ker Kero back on point. Here's what I'll say. Ker Kero showed a lot of promise early in the season in 2023. Even showed some versatility with his ability to blitz off the edge as a nickel corner, which I love to see. Now, throw in the mix, it's a new defensive coordinator in Anthony Weaver, and that presents new opportunities for the entire roster, but I would say specifically guys like Ker Kero, guys like Cam Smith, at some of those positions that don't have a bona fide starter at those positions yet. Yes, you have Jalen Ramsey, but the other part of the cornerback position group is kind of up for grabs. So I like the idea of Ker Kero getting back on track under some new coaching, new tutelage in Anthony Weaver, the new Dolphins defensive coordinator. From Kelly Hutchinson. All right, we love Kelly Hutchinson on Dolphins Today. I say cut Howard and bring in Surtain from Denver. He's a lot better and probably would not want as much money as X. Yes, from what's in the comment, yes, completely agree. I think Patrick Surtain is better than Xavier Howard, wouldn't cost as much. Remember those tweets that Patrick Surtain Sr., former Dolphins legend, was putting out when Surtain was playing for Denver. He was rotting away, wasting his career. We explored some different trade possibilities, And that's a guy that, depending on how you look at Denver and the direction of their franchise with the Broncos, maybe they're not quite in full sell mode like we thought they were leading up to the NFL trade deadline. And so I'm not sure they'll be willing to part ways with a really pivotal piece in their rebuild in their secondary. Because remember, Patrick Surtain's still really young and has a lot of good years left. And so even if the Broncos have a year or two down, I think they'd want him for the foreseeable future. And so you'd have to give up quite a bit in order to get Patrick Surtain. I think maybe something a little bit more realistically. I agree with cutting Xavier Howard because that's going to save so much money, over $8 million for the Dolphins in their cap space situation. So cutting Xavier Howard, but now let's potentially draft a new cornerback or potentially look in free agency for one, or in best case scenario, Cam Smith flourishes under Anthony Weaver. All right, before we go any further, I want to give a huge shout out to today's presenting sponsor. Without the Game Time app, Dolphins Today would not be possible. And the Game Time app guarantees the lowest price and the best seats at the lowest price guaranteed for all of your live events. And now that football season's in the rearview mirror, we turn our attention to the winter sports, basketball and hockey. You want to get out and see the Florida Panthers or the Miami Heat? Game Time is the only app you need to do so. It's real easy to use. They also have flash deals, which is pretty cool. They'll also show you your all-in price so you know exactly what you're paying, the high-resolution photos so you know where you're sitting. But in essence, it's all transparency. You can see everything, and because we love you and we care about you, we've got the promo code FINSCHAT for $20 off. That's PHINSCHAT. FINSCHAT for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Take the stress out of buying tickets. We guarantee the lowest price possible, even last-minute ticket deals. The Game Time app, terms do apply. $20 off when you use promo code FINSCHAT. And because we love you and we care about you, that link goes right in the comments and description of today's video. Take the stress out of buying tickets. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. It's game time. Another question coming in on our Ask Anything mailbag. Jackson Games asks, keep Waddle and extend Tua and cut Howard for someone better or for draft picks. Completely agree, Jackson. That's exactly part of my my perfect off-season plan, because if you cut Xavier Howard, you're saving a lot of money. If you extend and restructure Tua Tagovailoa's deal, you save a lot of money in this league year. So I think that makes quite a lot of sense. Now, as for Jalen Waddle, I think you'll see the Dolphins keep him for the long haul because he has been such a productive wide receiver and still on that rookie deal. This from Firefighter 841. How much cap space do we have? Well, it depends on what the NFL salary cap will be, which should be announced in the next couple of weeks. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, projecting it to be a little bit higher than expected, and so that would provide a little bit more flexibility for the Dolphins, for every team for that matter. But right now, they are expected to be $50 million over the cap, about or thereabouts. So obviously some adjustments that will need to be made by Chris Grier in the front office. Tua's touchdowns ask, any free agent names you're hearing? Very good question. One I actually was kind of surprised to hear yesterday was Jadeveon Clowney. And we did a deep dive on this on the channel, so you have to check it out. But coming over from Baltimore, he's a free agent right now. Jadeveon Clowney has kind of had a roller coaster career. He was a former number 1 overall pick, did not produce for quite a few years, had some hit or miss years, but it's been kind of just jumping from team to team on one-year deals. Last year he was in Baltimore, and he had over 9 sacks, which is really impressive. He really thrived under, that's right, Baltimore Ravens defensive line coach Anthony Weaver, who is now the Dolphins defensive coordinator. So I'm intrigued with kind of the way that there are a few more layers to that whole proposition with Jadeveon Clowney in Miami, and it might make a little bit of sense. So that's a name I've got my eye on. And then as far as the offensive side of things, Curtis Samuel, a wide receiver out of for the Washington Commanders, kind of Deebo Samuels-esque, obviously not at the level of Deebo Samuel, but a versatile wide receiver that can catch the ball, can also run the ball out of the backfield on jet sweeps, reverses, that sort of thing. good after the catch, and might not cost you a whole heck of a lot. And obviously, the Dolphins needing a third wide receiver, he's a name to keep an eye on. I've given you a few. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Name a player the Dolphins should sign. Very curious to see what you say. I love reading the comments, so let me know down in the comments below. Question from David Cox. What is up with Nick Needum? It's a good question. 28 years old, battled some injuries, and really wasn't a part of the defense last year. Had a handful of snaps, played some on special teams, but similar to Ker Kero, he's that nickel corner that could help this secondary. So if the Dolphins bring him back, I'm guessing it would be on a veteran minimum, so he wouldn't be making a whole heck of a lot, but maybe a new opportunity, breath of fresh air under new defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver. Oh, Sherry May, is Berrios a Garner? Good question. Like I said, I was listening to Locked On Dolphins, great podcast, and he was discussed as a player that has a lot of value outside the wide receiver position because of what he can bring to the table as a special teams guy, punt returner, kick returner, and unfortunately, he just doesn't have the abilities to really be classified as a number 3 or even a number 4 wide receiver. So if you keep him around, I think the majority of his value is seen in that special teams game. And he has shown last year he signed a 1-year deal with the Dolphins. So he's not opposed. He's shown that he's not opposed to a 1-year deal. So if you bring him back for a 1-year team-friendly deal combined with the potential expectations of the NFL salary cap growing, so the Dolphins having a little bit more flexibility, I don't think it's a done deal that Braxton Berrios is a Garner, but I would be surprised if he's back. However, I do see an avenue that it is possible for Braxton Berrios to be back next year with the Dolphins, but would take some cooperative flexibility on Berrios' end. Want to remind you to subscribe to the channel for your Dolphins news and rumors all off season. We continue to get closer and closer to that 60,000 subscriber mark. Help us reach it. A couple more questions coming in. Any late round steals Grier could pull off? This from a Dolphin. Great question, because I go back to my PFF mock draft simulator and was messing around with it a little bit yesterday. And in 2 of the 3 simulations I did, a guy by the name of Cooper Beebe fell to the 4th round. And this is a big deal because if he falls a little bit further, maybe the Dolphins can snag him in the 5th round. And depending on when he's drafted, he's a guy that I think has a ton of talent on the offensive line. I do think he'll go before even the 4th round. So unrealistic to think that the Dolphins, unless Will Grier makes some moves and picks up a 3rd-round draft pick and a 4th-round draft pick, because remember, the Dolphins don't have a 3rd or a 4th this year. 3rd, they lost for tampering with Sean Payton and Tom Brady. 4th, they lost in that Bradley Chubb trade. But if they can figure out a way to draft Cooper Beebe, he's a guy that continues to climb up draft boards, but for whatever reason was available in that 4th round on the PFF mock draft simulator. So he's a guy I like for the Dolphins to keep their eye on in the later round. I think Christian Haynes out of UConn is another name to keep your ear open for, because Christian Haynes, really good offensive lineman that might fall to the 2nd round. There's just so much loaded talent in the offensive line position for this draft. That's why I'm excited for the Dolphins, because I think that's a position of need for the Miami Dolphins. Next question from Chucky. What about a trade for Khil Mack since the Chargers may be selling? It's a good question, and I don't hate the idea. Khil Mack, though, one of the highest paid players in the NFL. Remember when he went to the Los Angeles Chargers, he signed that huge contract. And I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but I know he's owed quite a bit of money. And so I don't think he's going to be a guy that the Dolphins look to bring in. And if they are going to bring in an edge rusher, I frankly like the idea of re-signing Andrew Van Ginkel. We talked about drafting Laiatu Latu as an edge rusher and Jadeveon Clowney. I think all of those are better options than bringing in Khil Mack. All right, Charles Rears asks, possible to package Howard with Needum for Surtain, maybe Brandon Jones and Howard for Surtain. I don't think you're getting that. I think I'd sign up yesterday if the Broncos were willing to do that, but I just don't see any NFL organization accepting a trade for an aging cornerback for probably the most talented cornerback in the league. And maybe not the best, but you get the point I'm making. Certainly a better player on the field than Xavier Howard. And Needum might still have some gas in the tank. So that one, there's a value add there, but not enough in terms of being able to entice the Broncos to make that deal for Patrick Surtain. All right, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this edition of Dolphins Today. If you know a Dolphins fan, just as we said earlier, help us out, share the video, and let's continue to build Dolphins Today, the largest Dolphins community online on YouTube. Share today's video. We certainly appreciate it.